Mr. Steigel.
Here.
Mr. Lewis and Mr. Rouse are unable to attend tonight.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's hearing is a continuation of a public hearing that commenced on April 8th. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept comments on a proposed change to the zoning ordinance affecting parcels which abut East McMurray Road in the vicinity of Peters Township Fire Department Station 1. If you spoke on April 8th, your comments have been made part of the permanent record. Unless you have new and different evidence, I would encourage you to all allow others who were not in attendance to speak. This public hearing was advertised on Observer Reporter and well as on the Peters Township website. The property was posted. Notifications were sent out to all property owners within 600 feet of their proposed development. Action on the amendment to the zoning ordinance is on tonight's regular meeting agenda. Mr. Lauer?
Yes, just for the purposes of bringing people up to date who may not have been here, the parcels in question with regard to the change in the zoning ordinance are located along East McMurray Road, and as you can see from this drawing, they are in the vicinity of Station 1. There are actually 7 parcels, Parcel A, Parcel B, and there are 5 single-family lots that are also abut East McMurray Road. On the western part of the property, there is a proposal to construct an assisted living facility. That is begun to go through the process of approval. As of right now, they have filed for a subdivision that was in front of the Planning Commission. That's been tabled so that, in fact, the subdivision can be brought into accordance with the Township's ordinance, which requires that no property be landlocked and that there be access to public streets. And so, as I understand it, that revision is in the process of being made and may well be presented to the Planning Commission at their next meeting. At the last meeting, I had indicated to you that we were in receipt of a plan that shows townhouses to be accessed from the existing streets that abut this property without access onto East McMurray Road. At the last meeting, Dr. Zolhowski had indicated that he had submitted a plan, and in fact he had submitted a plan the afternoon of the hearing, which does show a connection onto East McMurray Road. In your information I sent out to you at the time, there were some administrative things that needed to be corrected. Those have been done, so this plan now is under review by the township staff with recommendations that will be made to the Planning Commission. So either at the next meeting of the Planning Commission or the one after, this plan will be considered for approval. What's proposed is the rezoning of the property, and what the rezoning consists of is removing the overlay and it reverting back to low density housing. And as you had indicated, we had taken testimony at the last meeting. This would be an opportunity for anybody who did not have an opportunity to provide testimony, to present testimony. It's also an opportunity for anybody on council who may not have been here to also ask questions and make comments. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lauer. Just please let the record show Mrs. Shanna Phelps now in attendance. So if everyone could, we'll now swear everyone in that would like to give testimony for the court reports. This will be for anyone that's going to speak at the public hearing.
You swear the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you. And we'll do the same thing as last meeting. We'll start over in this section, work from council's left to right. So if this gentleman in the blue wants to speak, I'm sorry, you'll be last. No problem. Anyone over in this section here? Yes, ma'am. Please come up to the microphone. Can you state your name for the court recorder, please?
Teresa Murphy.
And also write it down on the pad paper there,
Okay.
please.
What's your address?
Thank you.
Hi. The only thing I want to speak to is, prior to the last meeting, I guess we were under the impression we were talking about going back to half acres, and the townhouses seem to have slid down the street or whatever. Living in that community for 40-plus years, we now have 5 or 6, there's that turnover where we have young children moving into the neighborhood. Mine are since grown up, as well as many others. But my biggest concern is traffic. Anybody who comes out from Philbrook Drive and you have the middle school, that traffic from 4 to about 7 is backed up almost to the middle school constantly with the light at Donaldson's Crossroads. So if the plan is to add 50, 100 townhouses into that congested area, I have no idea how you're going to handle the traffic. Between the school buses coming into the middle school, I think it's a huge concern. Peters Township is growing, but what you're talking about is adding a large amount of residents into a very tight spot that already exists, coming out into 2 residential places. So you have access down to 19, and getting out of that is not easy to do between 4 and 7 o'clock either. I absolutely am aware of the difference in traffic over the last 40 years. And as I said, half-acre sites, I know the developer has to develop his land, is acceptable, but the townhouses, it's just too many people.
Thank you.
My name's Julie Horn. I live at 309 Marion. It is the third house in at the dead-end section where the townhouses would be.
Can you spell your last name?
Horn, H-O-R-N.
Thank you.
So,
Can you write it down?
You need your name
so I'm
and
sorry, I didn't even see
address.
this.
You have to spell it so the court reporter can take it down and get the correct spelling. I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't even see this. I'm sorry. My husband and I moved in October of 2021. So we are one of the newer families in the area. We have twins that are going to be 5, and then our son just turned 2. So we were very excited whenever we found a house that we thought was on a dead end. That's a huge reason why we moved to this area. And now, it might not be. And it's really making us think that we don't want to live in this area anymore, because we wanted to live in a safe area to raise our kids. And, townhouses is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry, townhouses in this area is insane. It's not even, I'm sorry, it makes me very upset.
Are you concerned about with that prior woman, Miss Murphy, I should say?
Well, the traffic, I'm sorry, it makes me very emotional, because we were so excited to find our forever home, and it makes me want we're thinking about moving if this happens, because we love this area. We love our house. We love this neighborhood. And if this happens, we want to move. we love it here. And I'm sorry. It, like, I understand that this happens, but, like, townhouses, it's not a forever home for people in general. People get townhouses, maybe start a family, and then they move on. But from my experience with my friends that have lived in townhouses, they're going to live in this area, see all the traffic and congestion, and then be like, okay, well, I don't want to stay in this area, because they're going to deal with the traffic, especially here with the schools. They're going to see the traffic from the football stadium, Giant Eagle being right here, and they're going to be like, I'm not staying here, and they're going to want to move out of Peters. Why would you want to stay in this area with all of this right here? It's not going to make sense. It's literally just not going to make sense, especially even if the bigger houses in this area happen. It's just insane to me. But I'm more worried about the safety of all the kids on our street. We have my kids, my neighbor's kids. She has 5 kids. The kids down the street. There's going to be over 200 vehicles driving up and down our street now. The kids that are going to walk to school because the school's right there. I'm sorry, it makes me very upset. That I wanted to speak last time I was here, but I couldn't. And all my neighbors talked to me and said I should, because we're the youngest people in our neighborhood, and we're some of the newest people in our neighborhood. And it's just, sorry, it's just, we love living here. It makes us want to move. And if this happens, it's not going to be a safe place for our kids to be raised. We wanted a place for our kids to ride our bikes, and we're not going to be able to do that. There's going to be so many cars up and down our street now, because there's going to be townhouses. We're going to look out our window, and there's going to be townhouses right, like, literally 500 feet from our house now. I don't understand how anyone, how anyone thinks that's going to be okay.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm sorry, I got upset.
No, it's fine.
Paul, is there the signs that we usually put at the end of streets that where a connection may go through? You know, this is a temporary cul-de-sac, may be extended. Is there
There's
one at the
nothing.
end
It
of
says
the
no
area?
outlet.
There's not a temporary cul-de-sac there. I mean, this is an old plan. In fact, I don't know that there are cul-de-sacs in this neighborhood. Yeah.
So there's no sign there that
No.
someone was going to purchase a house that they would have any notice that that road would be extended?
No, but it's a dead-end street. So.
Anyone else over in this section want to come up for comment? Anyone in the middle section? Yes, sir.
My name is Don Hutchins, EGTCHINS. I'm sorry, I got spoke at the last meeting, so I will try to keep this very quick, fairly concise. I do have a few new comments I'd like to bring up that I do feel warranted. 2 previous individuals have talked about children and things of that nature. I made it a point since the last meeting to drive around the neighborhood a couple times, and I see my portion of the neighborhood, but I didn't see the entirety of the neighborhood. So I did that a few times, and I was really surprised how many, especially younger children, there are in the area. I also noticed an incredible amount of walkers, whether it be with pets or for exercise, and also a lot of middle school students are walking along those streets too. For what reason, I'm not quite sure, but there is that traffic as well. Safety is a huge issue. With the additional congestion, probably of both 19, certainly McMurray Road, it's also going to slow down EMS response time, which is an additional thing that needs to be considered, in my opinion. But I was really surprised just how many young kids there are in the area, and I think that safety's got to be the number one issue. It seems to me that townhouses on this spot is trying to squeeze the wrong project into the wrong space. Thank you very much.
Can you put your name and address on the sheet?
I apologize. I missed that.
Anyone else in the middle? Yes, sir. You can come to this podium if you want. You can come to this podium over here. It's feeling lonely over here.
Can you give me your name and spell it, too?
Yes, my name is Eric Perry. Last name Perry.
And Eric with the C, okay.
I live at 326 Pleasant Avenue, and parcel A on that map abuts the back end of my property. And so if this development goes through as proposed, I will be looking out, every time I look out the back of my house, back of my yard, I'll be looking directly into this townhouse development. And I'm going to probably reiterate a few things that Mr. Hutchins said, and that is safety. Pleasant, the plan that was up here, the drawing that was up here a few slides previously, seems to show that there would be a connection from this townhouse development into the intersection of Pleasant Avenue and Crest Street or Crest Avenue. I have walked my dog around that corner many, many times, probably hundreds of times, and that is a blind intersection. Crest Avenue is so named for a reason. It is at a maximum elevation in the middle of the street, about halfway in between Pleasant and Marion, and traffic coming from Crest, there is a period of time where they cannot see the corner where this new traffic connection would be made. So it's adding to what is already a bit of a blind corner would simply make this worse. Traffic coming out of there, I think, would pose an additional safety hazard. The individual, the family that lives at the end of Pleasant Avenue, which right adjacent to that, what would become a three-way intersection, their driveway comes up onto Pleasant Avenue, virtually right where this new street would turn in. And so those people, Paletti's is their name, would just about be taking their lives into their hands every time they go in and out of their driveway. So I want to emphasize to you that is a blind intersection, and adding an additional feeder from 90 townhomes is only going to increase the safety issue associated with it. Mr. Hutchins, and I'll reiterate again, there are a lot of people who walk in the neighborhood, who run in the neighborhood, who walk their pets in the neighborhood. Like him, I'm a little surprised at the number of young kids that are around the neighborhood these days. That's a school bus route. All of these things play into safety issues, and I do not want to see Pleasant Avenue, Crest, Marion become some sort of a throughway for however many vehicles come out of 90 townhomes crammed into this space here. Safety issues, he mentioned the fire hall. I got questions about that as well. Putting this development in and around the fire hall, what kind of effect does that have on their ability to respond in a timely manner to anything and everything that may come up that they have to deal with? The school is across the street, as you know, and that's been mentioned as well. That at certain times of the day, that area is heavily congested with traffic. And again, if you're going to have 90 additional residences feeding traffic in and out of there, that's only going to add to what is already a congested section along McMurray Road at certain times of the day. Beyond that, putting townhomes right up against an established neighborhood, which is 50 or 60 years old. I don't know the exact age. I've been living there for 27 years now. But this is a total lack of regard, in my view, to the residents and the character of the neighborhood around it to put townhomes in here. To, yeah, sort of echo Mr. Hutchins' comments. Yeah, I feel like this is just trying to squeeze things into a space where it doesn't really belong. A more compatible type of development, if that's what happens here ultimately, would be single-family housing similar to what already exists around it. I was not here at the last meeting, so these are new comments from an additional individual. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the middle section?
Actually, could I add one more thing?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
My background is in geology and earth science, and I haven't seen anything specific on the nature of foundation investigations in this area, but I do know from just my general knowledge of the area and what goes on my own property that foundation conditions, building conditions are something that would need to be looked at rather carefully here. There are wet weather seeps and springs in various places around that hillside. I have one in the back of my yard. And so from a construction standpoint, that would seem to be an issue to be considered by the folks in the planning department. All right, thank you. I'm done.
All right.
Yes, we have in the back. Please come on.
I spoke at the last meeting, so I will make it brief as well. Last time I mentioned that I have lived in the township since '68, and I think I neglected to mention I have lived on Marion Drive since '86, so 37 years. And became a starter home for us, a rental to begin with actually, became my starter home, became my forever home. And my daughter wanted to live in that same home and bring her kids up in it because we love the neighborhood. So just so happens I happened to buy another house, 10 houses up, so I could remain in the neighborhood. It's a small neighborhood. It's being towered by the Anthony Farms development. So we're small homes. I mean, we're 50, 60 years old, and nobody's bought properties and rebuilt huge homes on it. To confirm what others have said about young kids, the starter homes, it's either starter homes for people or elderly. And there are elderly, I think they're myself getting there, but there are older people. So it's a gentle neighborhood, I would say, being disrupted from other traffic that gets diverted through it. And I'd like to point out that I don't know what they're called. They're not townhomes, carriage homes, or whatever, above Aldi's. There is traffic that goes through there because it has become more of a thoroughfare too. So I hate to see what would happen to our neighborhood with townhomes. So I'll write my name down, sorry.
Thank you for your comments.
I also, Dr. Sahovsky, I appreciate your profession. First of all, I also appreciate that you don't live in the township currently. Is that correct?
I lived here for 11 years.
Okay. So, I mean, with so many residents against townhomes, I just wonder, what do you have against half-acre lots? So it's a rhetorical question, but thank you.
Anyone else from the middle section? Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Desaw, DESAW. One thing that I haven't heard mentioned is Pleasant Valley Elementary School is bursting at the seams currently from everything that I've heard. I have friends who are teachers there, said like they're utilizing closet space as teaching space. you introduce, like townhomes are going to have younger kids in them just by the nature of them. Are there plans for the schools to expand or somehow accommodate this?
We wouldn't know that. That would be a school district function.
Well, we did last year. We're going to have a meeting coming up here in a week with the school board, and we will bring this up to them. But last year when we had that comment, because we present all of the plans that are going to be new developments, and they said there's plenty of rooms in our schools currently. So that was their comment last year.
In some of them, but not PV. Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone over on the right side? Yes, sir, come over. Sure.
My name's Chuck Gerchak. I spoke here last time. I live on Crest Drive. And Gurchak. All right. Just to address
Can
the
you
council.
sign in, though?
Oh, yeah. I will.
Okay.
Have any of you people even know this neighborhood? Anybody on council?
I do, sir.
Anybody ever driven in the neighborhood?
Sir, I lived in that neighborhood from the time I was born
Okay,
to
so
the
you
time I was
know
38.
the situation that everybody's
do.
talking about here.
I do.
And you're going to let this add 200 cars. Everybody in Peters Township owns 2 cars, or 3. There's going to be 200 more cars coming through our tight little neighborhood. And if it wasn't for Pleasant going on onto 19, it would be just a closed loop, almost like a cul-de-sac. I will repeat what everybody else said. Every day we look out, we have women pushing their buggies with their children and people with cars, not even paying attention, because I call them suburban walkers. They walk with the back facing oncoming traffic. They have no concept that you should face traffic.
I'm well aware of that, sir. Back in my earlier days, I used to walk past your house every night when I would walk around Marion Drive to try to keep myself
in my situation. And as people spoke earlier, we're getting more and more young people moving into the neighborhood. Every day, I've been in that neighborhood for 25 years, and I see the same guy jogging past every day. You've probably seen him yourself.
I remember him. He used to wave at me every morning when I lived on McNary. Yeah.
Waves at everybody.
Yeah.
And people don't do the speed. I'm probably guilty myself for not doing 25 mile an hour, so I can't condemn anybody else in the neighborhood. If I go over, my wife is on my case. She's watching out for me. So this is ridiculous. Like everybody said, we'll spoil this nice half-acre, quiet neighborhood by pushing all this traffic. And I pity the people that live on Marion, down on that lower end, where it comes off the billboard, because they're just going to get flooded with traffic. A little bit will go by my place, maybe because they're going to dive down into that plant. But the rest of the people on Marion, that lower end, I pity them with all that traffic coming through. Traffic, daily. Like everybody repeated, you can't even get out on McMurray Road now. If we didn't have access on the Pleasant, forget about it. And you can't even make a left turn at any point in time. I call that almost a dead-end neighborhood. A cul-de-sac, basically, if we didn't have that other access. In and out, that's it. So this has to stop. This has to stop. You people work for Peters Township, you got to consider the residents of Peters Township first. Not an outside investor. Thank you all.
Can you sign in and put your address? Thank you.
Thanks for the reminder.
You know what, and just for a point of clarification before the next speaker, what's on the screen is not what council is voting on tonight. All they're voting on this evening is changing the zoning. So don't get confused with what you see. That was just an application that was received, but that's not before them this evening.
Paul, Paul,
I understand. I just don't want anyone to think that this vote is voting up or down on that plan.
Paul, regardless of what happens tonight, would it be possible to get a sign out there indicating that Marion could be extended at some point in the future so we don't have other buyers?
Why? No.
That's not part of the meeting.
No. Every dead end in this township. We just had somebody in the back say they would not have bought their house if they had known that that road may be extended. I'm trying to make sure that that doesn't happen to somebody else.
I've been there for over 40 years, and I don't want no sign there that says,
Okay, so-
it could be extended.
So you would prefer that nobody knows that that road could be extended at some
I would
point?
prefer that you not put up townhouses.
Okay, but that's not what I said.
That's the move you were
No,
making.
absolutely not. Absolutely
Yes,
not.
it is.
Even if single-family homes are going to be built there, Marion Drive would be extended. All I asked for is that we put a sign there so that someone who buys a house in that neighborhood is aware that that street may be extended. Personally, I take offense that you would say to me that the reason I want to put that there is to build townhouses.
I didn't
Why
say
does
that.
the street have to be
I didn't say
extended?
townhouses.
Let's get
exactly
back,
what you said.
let's get back to the meeting,
You know
the
what?
hearing itself.
Why can't the street just stay a dead end? There's no outlet sign there already. Why can't the street just stay a dead end?
You should
First
have
of
put
all,
it up 35 years ago.
Please, we have a court reporter. The only time you should speak is when you come up. Otherwise, she can't take the notes from the meeting. The fact of the matter is that if there is a street there and it borders on a neighboring property, the property owner has a right of access in using that street. So even if there is a zoning change here, and that's something for council to decide, it doesn't mean that those streets will forever be a dead end. And it's what you're right about, Mr. Kozer, is it's been the township's policy to make sure that people understand what the implications are on temporary cul-de-sacs and dead-end streets, and certainly on every new plan that we put in. That's exactly the notice we put in so that people understand what the situation is with regard to some future access to that street. And that's true whether that street was put in last year or that street was put in 60 years ago. When it dead ends onto a neighboring property, you have a right of access.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, ma'am, please come up to.
My name is Tony, Toni, Taylor, hyphen, Cavacina. Cavacina is Cavasina. And I'll be brief because I'm just piggybacking on some of the comments about the traffic. But as people are very upset about the traffic regarding these townhouses, let me remind you that the atrocity that's being built behind my house, the Schwerzler's house, right there, in fact, the assisted living 3-story building, as I went to the meeting last year, is, I think, 10 feet. The corner of the building is 10 feet from his property. So anyway, the point here is there's going to be 100, 150 employees a day. That's what they think work there. But there's also going to be the temporary people that work there. There's also going to be all the people that visit their relatives in the assisted living. There's going to be food trucks, the IT guys, the laundry service, the repair service. Ambulances, you name it, going in and out of that turn. So I just want you to know that, yes, you have a problem with traffic from townhouses. You've got an actually bigger problem if the assisted living is built.
Can you put your name down in your
I did.
address? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before we close the public hearing?
Teresa Murphy, I just said something. I just wanted to follow up here when I hear all the neighbors talk about traffic. As I said, our little piece of the neighborhood has 5 or 6 new homes with young people. And I think that when you're talking about the East McMurray, Donaldson Crossroad intersection and everything that is already there, and you're talking about adding almost 100 townhouses, independent living, or whatever you want to call it, and everybody has a couple of cars, I think the demand is here for a traffic study before anybody considers adding 100 new residents in that small piece of area. And I think as a resident, everybody will agree. You need a traffic study, a professional traffic study, and perhaps the developer should
Paul, I
be
think there was one.
responsible.
Well, I was going to say, again, what we're considering tonight is the rezoning of the property. But this plan that has been submitted will require that a traffic study be done. That's just part of our
And is
review
that
process.
viewable by the public?
Absolutely, everything is viewable by the
Okay.
public.
Well, I think that's important. I would be very shocked to know you can put and survive traffic there.
Well,
That would surprise me.
as I recall, the results of the study, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lauer, was that you could put the traffic in, but you'd have to put a traffic light in front of the middle school.
And who's willing to do that?
The developer would be required to.
We're not paying. We wouldn't pay for it.
Okay, so all of these things, when I hear about all the traffic, I worked as a civil engineer for many years, and I think I would like to see a traffic study. And if there is
But-
one, I'd like
But
to
again, what you're considering tonight has nothing to do with this particular plan. Yes.
Well, then all the more need for half acres.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody, and council, and I know you've heard public testimony both at the last time and tonight. My name is Alice Meitinger, M-I-T-I-N-G-E-R. I'm counsel for Dr. Zahalski. Mr. Levine was here last time. It's Passover. He's not here tonight. But I want to reiterate what Mr. Lauer and Mr. Smith both said. What's before council tonight is a request for rezoning from a mixed residential use overlay district, which was enacted consistent with comprehensive plan, and the proposed rezoning to remove these parcels from that overlay district is directed at very specific parcels in reaction to a potential plan. And as, again, Mr. Lauer and Mr. Smith said, what you're voting on tonight is the rezoning aspect and not a specific plan. There are in the zoning ordinance, section 440.406.2, really extensive requirements for any development in that overlay district. And the concerns that have been raised tonight would be appropriately addressed in the context of a plan that is submitted in accordance with the zoning. What we're asking council to do is to not rezone these parcels, but which would be spot zoning, classic spot zoning under Pennsylvania law, but to allow the zoning, the mixed-use overlay district designation to remain in place so that an appropriate development could be, and a plan for appropriate development could be submitted in accordance with the regulations, both in the zoning ordinance and the subdivision and land development ordinance. So again, you've heard a lot of testimony over the past few evenings, but it's our position that this proposed rezoning would be spot zoning and it would be subject to challenge, and we would ask the board, the council, to consider that in making a decision this evening. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments
Before you close the hearing, just so that everyone's clear, what is in front of you is the rezoning of the property. In addition to that, there has been a plan submitted for review, and the property owner's entitled under the current zoning to have that review done, and we will be proceeding through that process. And when this plan is to be put in front of the Planning Commission, the neighbors will be notified of that and given an opportunity to make comment. But with regard to what's in front of you tonight, at the regular meeting on March 14th, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended that this portion of the property be rezoned by removing it from the mixed residential overlay district. In addition, that is the recommendation of the Township's planning staff, and it is my personal recommendation that this property be rezoned. We don't need to applaud because we don't do this by applause meter.
I asked Paul at the last public hearing because none of us were on, but Mr. Arcuri may have been because he wasn't here the last meeting, what the rationale was for putting this land in the zoning district to begin with.
And I don't know that.
Okay, because when you look at it, it just makes no sense. It's surrounded by half-acre lots. You know, two streets that connect into it come from neighborhoods that are all half-acre lots. I mean, I did grow up in that neighborhood, yes. I am still good friends with the Paletti's son, and yes, the gentleman who spoke about how the Paletti's can't get out of their driveway, they couldn't get out of their driveway 20 years ago, let alone the way the traffic is today.
And the one thing that I can tell you is that we did not know, and I would doubt that at the time the planning staff knew that there were 5 half-acre lots on East McMurray Road.
And again, Mr. Holdren wasn't here at the time, so we can't even ask if, had the planning department known at that time that those 5 lots on East McMurray existed, would the recommendation have been different at the time?
Don't know that.
Don't know.
Okay.
All right.
Probably.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm shocked that he's done that.
Paul, do you know, when was it put into the current district?
I don't know that.
It would be good if Mr. Lewis was here because
He may know.
he's been on council longer than me.
I was going to say it's in the 2015 range, give or take.
Had to have been before that.
Are you talking about the overlay or the prior zoning?
I'm talking, when was it originally put into multifamily?
That's what he's saying. He thinks it's...
Yeah, it was it was my understanding it was after the comprehensive plan was adopted. The last comprehensive plan, which was 2013.
Mr. President, it was 2016, that's what I understand.
Okay. Thank you. That was right before I got on. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
She hasn't been sworn in.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing
I do. Rachel Kuhart, Kuchar. Okay. I spoke last time, but I'm just going to keep it simple here. As Mr. Lauer has been saying, this is the focus of this is supposed to be on the rezoning, and I think that because of the established neighborhood that has been there, it's not just 50 years, I believe it's been about 70 years, because I know my house was built in the 1950s, and this is the year 2024. So because of this established neighborhood being single-family homes on that side of East McMurray Road, all around this property, I would ask you to please, consider trying to keep the, to vote for rezoning it to single-family homes so that we can keep this area all with similar neighborhoods. I am not trying to stop this property owner from selling his property or developing his property. I don't see any reason why he can't sell it and have a developer propose a different development that would have single-family homes on it with the half-acre lots. And that is within the property owner's right to do that. And I'm just asking you to, because of the traffic concerns, because of the fact that we have not only 1 but 2 schools across the street. We have the elementary school, and the high school, from what I understand, is still using the athletic fields at the old high school, which is now the middle school. There's a lot of people walking up and down those roads. If we could just limit the amount of additional houses added to that area by rezoning it to single-family, residential, that would be my wish. And they are, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see any legal reason that they can't, develop the land unless there's an environmental reason, which is a completely different study that I'm not an expert in. But I would like to ask you to please rezone the area to single family, which I think is what belongs in that area. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
My name is Andrew Zahalsky, and Z-A-H-A-L-S-K-Y. I'm the property owner. I did speak at the last meeting, but I just wanted to respond to a couple of the comments. Again, although I no longer live in the township, I did live in this township for 11 years. This was home to me, and I'm very much concerned about this being a lovely and wonderful neighborhood. To point out, with the many of the commenters have mentioned how there are a lot of people with young children. Again, when I was living here, I had young children. They're now a little bit older. And, I'm in the sandwich generation where not only do I have young children, but I also have my mother-in-law, who is now older, who moved into a smaller townhome to be close to us after her husband passed away. So, again, one of the driving incentives here was at the time, and again, it was in the 2016 comprehensive plan, the township had established a need for more affordable housing for those of us who want to actually have, elderly parents who want to age in place. Many of the people have the concerns that there are young children here also have concerns about where their parents are going to be living in the next 5 to 10 years. And the incentive behind my purchase of the land was, again, at the time, the township had identified that as a need, and I also identified that as a personal need, and I thought that we could work together. Many of the concerns, I wanted to raise one issue with the traffic. Again, the current version of the proposal, and we're not looking at a specific plan, the current version of the proposal would require a signalized intersection which cuts through what are currently those properties. As you mentioned, the prior planning commission might not have approved the rezoning here had they known those 5 lots existed. But if we move forward after listening and trying to respond to the township's concerns, the people's concerns, if we move forward, we're looking at something that's going to vacate, basically reconsolidate those back in so that they wouldn't have approved it if they existed. They won't exist anymore. On the other hand, if this rezoning goes through where the only thing allowed is single-family homes, I would have no choice but to keep the existing single-family lots there. There would never be a possibility for that connection. And actually, I think the township has identified that having a connection there with a signalized intersection, rather than generating more traffic in Marion, Crest, Fieldgate, it would give traffic an opportunity to come down and have a known, as opposed to going to Fieldgate where you're waiting for all this traffic on East McMurray that just never stops. There's a signal there, and okay, I have to wait X amount of seconds, X amount of minutes, and then I'm going to get a turn. This would actually greatly improve the flow of traffic out of all of the properties to the north if I'm allowed to work with the township. So my appeal, again, we're not looking at a specific plan. This plan doesn't have to be the final plan either. There's, as my attorney mentioned, there's a whole host of criteria I'm going to have to work with the township to resolve. The question here is, do we want to foreclose all the options and do a rezoning now where I have no choice but to keep those 5 lots, or do we want to basically punt the ball down the road, not choose to rezone yet, and give me the opportunity to work with the township on something that will improve the traffic, improve the character of the neighborhood, provide opportunities for people to have their, there's so much good that can be done. I just need time to work with the township. I am responsive to what is out here. I just would like to have the opportunity to work with the township and get the township what they need. I'm not trying to destroy the township. I love this township. This is where my kids grew up.
Thank you, Dr. Solomon. Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
Lynn Thomas, THOMAS. I've lived in Peters Township on Pleasant for 30 years. I grew up in Peters Township all my life. I loved seeing less traffic when the new high school went down the road and the high school kids at 7:25 were not flying through my neighborhood to get to high school on time because that was a throughway. So that was nice. It has calmed down. It's a wonderful neighborhood. I love it. Our house was built in '57. I would like to have it rezoned all parcels to remove the overlay, including the assisted living property. Thank you. Let me get my name in here.
Thank you for the comments. Anyone else? Any comments before the public hearing closes?
There's one right here.
Yes, ma'am.
I spoke at the last one. My name's Carol Creechar, 228. 228.
That's spell your last name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kuchar. It's too hard that it's in the CM.
We need to put her under oath, because they came after you swore everybody.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I agree with a lot of the people here. Somewhat you have to vote with safety in mind, the children, the school. Peters Township is just growing by leaps and bounds. Everywhere. I've been doing DoorDash delivery for a year now, and to help supplement my Social Security. And I just cannot believe, I had no idea there were so many townhomes, plans everywhere. And it's getting even scary driving through all the townhomes and, trying to safely deliver the food to the people that need it or want it. Anyway, this is already such a extremely congested area, and I just don't see, and I'm not going to extend this, I just want to say that I don't see why this developer, whoever it is that's buying this or wants to put townhouse, I don't see why it's such a bad idea to rezone it to, since there's all these residential, houses around. What's wrong with just putting the single homes, single mansions on half-acre lots? What's wrong with that? I just think that's, there's nothing wrong with that. There's still money to be made, and you can't take it with you. Someday, people are going to be sorry. And I just think that's just my opinion. My opinion doesn't count for much. I've had a house in Peters Township for, oh God, how many years? 40? I can't remember. I've lost count. So on East McMurray Road, my husband and I bought a house on East McMurray Road and still have it. It needs everything, a lot of work. But I'm not leaving Peters because it's just home. The people here are just so kind and so nice, and I feel really good about living here. And that's all. I just want to say, please consider keeping it the same, because it's just going to be a whole bee's nest of bee's hive of problems in the future. There's nothing wrong with having half-acre lots with beautiful mansions. Everyone's going to be happy with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Aren't there 2 more?
Yes.
They're not here?
They're not here.
Again? I remember you weren't here. It's nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Okay. All right, I'll put my name here. And
They were here at the last, I wasn't here.
Oh, was that you? Yeah.
So in the 2 public hearings, 6 of the 7 of us have been here.
Well, nice to meet you that weren't here.
Thank you for your
We
comments.
appreciate your comments.
I appreciate being able to talk.
Any other comments for the public hearing?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hope we go one more in the back.
Okay.
Hi, James Hurley. I actually didn't come to comment on this, but I know exactly where this is in this development. And I think you need to consider commuters. If you add 5-10 minutes to my commute, I'm going to move, honestly. It's already an hour to get downtown to work. I go 4 days a week. You add traffic and lights, I'm gonna move, you know? So if you don't think of commuters, it won't be a commuter town anymore, and you'll lose a lot of residents.
Thank you.
Hurley, Hurley.
Okay. Any other last minute comments? If not, yes.
I just forgot to add that you are the community's advocate to help us, help make decisions based on what's best for the community as a whole and as individual. So I appeal to you to, make a decision, based on if there are no rules and we don't put any rules in place, and we don't have any planning commission, and people can do whatever they want, sell any land, develop any land any way they want, then we have problems. We're going to have issues, and that's why we have these things in place in a community. It's almost like we're a giant subdivision that has rules that we need to follow. And that's what a township is, or a borough. And we have, rules to try to protect the people, the safety, the property values, the good of the community. And so I would just ask you to please seriously consider voting to put this land back to residential, regular residential that requires single-family homes. The landowners can come up with a new plan. There are houses that were just built, and I can't remember, it was McClellan Farms, I believe, just down the street. They built houses there recently, and it looks like they have, I believe that's residential, I could be wrong, but, that's, not as congested as adding 90 townhomes. That's going to add delivery trucks, food delivery cars, 2 cars per house. It's just going to add so much congestion to this area. And it seems like everybody is focusing on not wanting townhouses. And I mean, personally, no, I don't want townhouses so close to my house. But at the same time, I think this is more of a question of, is this the right place for that type of high-density properties, high density versus low density. And if we can find, without it, another place that's not next to 2 schools and a high school that's still using part of that, one of the schools for the athletic fields and other things, that would probably be okay. Depending on the area, it would probably be fine. But this is already a very congested area that's right next to a commercial area, and it's just, I think we need to be very cautious about how much more congestion that we add to this area. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion in multiple seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Close the public hearing. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you, everyone, for coming for your comments. Very much appreciated.
Dr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Mr. Lauer. Audience comments limited to 5 minutes on non-agenda items. Anyone have?
I'll make this short. I just want to say that, as far as people coming here, you know,
Ms. Shaner, you still have to state your name.
yeah, Ann Shaner. You know, when I was part of a group to try to stop the gas companies from putting derricks up in the township, okay? That was back in 2011. We lost that vote. We are a home-ruled community. We went out and got 2,500 signatures on petitions to show that we were the first group that ever got an amendment put on our ballot. I don't know if any of you, maybe a Curie was on council then. And we got that put on the ballot. And the thing of it is, if people, you know, everybody can talk about, you know, keeping their community looking nice and things like this, but you have to be engaged in your community. You can't, you know, this is all after the fact. So we lost the vote, and that was because council came out against us hard, and they sided with the gas industry, okay? I don't know how gas derricks in this township would help. And I had a map in my house, because we held the meetings there, of where every location of a gas well would have been. The Queen of Heaven Cemetery was a site. The golf course over in Venetia was a site. I mean, they were everywhere. And we did not want that. We weren't stopping anybody from getting their gas, because you have a right to your gas. So to go under your property was fine. But to put derricks up, that was wrong. But we lost that vote because council came out against us. So now I hear people...
That's not entirely correct, because from beginning, I was not in favor of oil development, oil gas development. And that was consistent. In fact, one time they misquoted me and I had to have a retraction.
Yeah, well, this is true. This is true. You correct that. But I'm talking about the final vote because council was against us. All I'm saying is people need to be engaged in their community instead of just coming out when it's up close and personal like this, because it's too late now. It's, you know, sometimes it gets to be too late, because now we're in a predicament that, you know, we could get, I don't know if we could get sued for this spot zoning, but I don't like spot zoning. I know what it is, and, you know, no one should like spot zoning. So as far as, you know, just keeping that in mind, I hope I start to see more people at these council meetings. If you care that much about your community, you know, if you care about what things will look like. I wanted to go up on those streets and see if people were, there were a lot of children. I didn't have time because you all know what I do, and I was busy all week. So
There are no
anyway.
intersections up there without stop signs, Ms. Shaners.
Okay. So, yeah, because I probably would have gotten a stop sign in for him. So anyway, that's my one thing. I just hope people start to get more involved, because this Johnny-come-lately stuff is nerve-wracking to me. You know, to sit here and listen to people complain and say this and that and the beautification and all that. I mean, my God, you know, up in my development, I have that Maid Marian thing. There's a bunch of those. And I have one woman complaining to me about a tree that's going to fall down in her yard from those people over there with the Maid Marian neighborhood development. So, you know, things happen, development happens, and you have to be aware and you have to be up on what's going on in your community so that you can prevent something if you don't want it to happen.
Dr. Prescott, can I just make sure of one thing that people understand? Peters Township does not allow drilling throughout the township. I just don't want to get those telephone calls tomorrow. The fact of the matter is Peters Township, along with 5 other municipalities, is the organizations that took the gas and oil industry to court and got restrictions that limit drilling to industrial zones.
Well, yeah, and that's right, because Mr. Ball was originally against us, and then he turned around and had that done. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Shannon. Any other audience comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none, moving on. Unfinished business. Ordinance amending Peters Township Code of Ordinance, Chapter 440 zoning, Section 400, district classification, Figure 400.1, quote, current Peters Township zoning map, end quote.
This is what our discussions have been on for the last two meetings. As I said before, this was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their March 14th meeting. It was their unanimous recommendation that the portion of this property as shown on the drawing here be rezoned by removing the mixed residential overlay district. That is the recommendation of the planning staff as well as my own. So my recommendation that council adopt Ordinance 903, amending the Peters Township Code of Ordinances.
And Paul, how large is that parcel acreage-wise, give or take? I don't need the exact.
I believe it's roughly 17 acres.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, we've heard some discussion from the property owner regarding this potentially being a spot zone. Have you looked into that?
Yes, and while I have great respect for the applicant's counsel, I disagree. I don't believe this is spot zoning, in my opinion. I've litigated spot zoning. To me, this is the antithesis of that. It's actually putting it back, not creating an island of use by itself. Typically in spot zoning, this area would become industrial and everybody around it would be residential. What we're looking at here, this is going back to the underlying zoning district, and I believe it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and with zoning, and I don't believe it's spot zoning, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I mean, I was impressed with the number of comments made by the residents of the neighborhood and the township. Again, what I'll state is what I said before. I wasn't on council when this land was put in this district. I don't understand why it ever was. And looking at it, it makes no sense for it not to be R1, given that it is all surrounded by R1. So I will make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 903, amending the Peters Township Code of Ordinances, Chapter 440, zoning section 400, district classification, figure 400.1, current Peters Township zoning map.
Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion on council? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, Mr. Lauer.
Dr. Proska, can I recommend taking a minute break, and if people want to leave, that way they can do it without disrupting the meeting?
Great idea, thank you. So we'll take a 1-minute intermission here. If people want to step out, that'd be great, so we can resume the meeting. Prepared by JMS Engineering and Froebe Management, LLC, submitted on January 22nd, 2024.
Mr. Holdren, since the last meeting, have there been any submissions by the developer? Have any of the conditions we discussed the last time been addressed?
No, they have not, other than the fact that they submitted a letter, April 11th, I believe was the date of it, that's saying that they would address all the conditions, most if not all. However, we have not seen any evidence of them addressing it.
So basically, we're in the same place we were the last time.
They're in the same place, other than the fact that they said they will address them.
Okay.
Would you want to speak?
Good evening. My name is David Shuey. I'm with the law firm of Troutman, Pepper, Humphrey, Sanders, LLP. We represent Froebe Management. I think one thing that was left out of that statement was that there was a meeting with the township staff after being requested. That was on February 9th. I'm sorry, April 9th, 2 days before that letter was sent. That meeting was to discuss the technical nature of the comments that were received in the review letter. And I think that at this point, this board is compelled almost by case law to table any action this evening, accept the grant of the extension, and then as the plans get prepared, revised plans get prepared, review them in due course, and then make a decision then. By not accepting the grant of the extension after the meeting taking place less than 13 days ago, after the developer requested this meeting, following a month of the staff not reviewing the plan under the applicable ordinance, I think it's to not accept the grant of the extension and to deny the plan based upon whatever comments are existing constitutes bad faith on the part of the township, and as said by state courts, the municipality has a legal obligation to proceed in good faith in reviewing and processing plans. That includes discussing matters involving technical requirements of the ordinance, interpretations with an applicant, and providing an applicant with a reasonable opportunity to respond to objections or to modify the plans where there's been a misunderstanding or difference of opinion. The meeting to discuss happened 13 days ago. With me is the project's engineer, John Schlecker, who will say that following that meeting, to revise the plans to meet the standards that the developers agreed to meet will take more than 13 days. So I think this board is compelled, this council is compelled to accept the grant of the extension. That way, their deemed approval could be asserted, and review the plan when it comes.
I would like to correct this timeline, because I think what's being stated here is misleading in terms of council's consideration of this. So there is a request for a plan that was submitted on January 22nd, 2024. And a review letter by the township staff was supplied to the developer on March 4th of 2024, and nothing occurred with regard to that. On March 14th, consideration of the preliminary plan was tabled by the Planning Commission at the request of the developer, because the developer had done nothing to remedy the things in the report. The request for the meeting was on April 9th, and it was by the developer. The township always has been prepared to sit down with the developer to discuss this, and has done this on numerous occasions. What you see in terms of the exceptions in this plan are no different than the Froebe 2, which was the plan that we considered previously. And despite knowing what those shortcomings were, the developer chose to submit a plan with the same shortcomings and not to address them.
Paul, I'm embarrassed I don't remember this. This was in front of us one time previously, the request to table this, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And what was that day? It was in March, right?
It was a month ago.
So it was the March 20... Pass the date when I can remember. The calendar's in my head.
So while you're looking that up, Frank, Mr. Smith, I have a question. Do you feel like the municipality has in good faith been working with the developer on this project?
On multiple projects for the same property, the township has, like every applicant, has worked with them. I asked Mr. Holdren today, Mr. Chairman, so he could explain to council how he reached out to the developer to try to prod the developer along to sitting down with the township to fix the deficiencies. Mark, do you know when that was?
Well, what I can tell you is we've had 14 calls since this plan has been submitted back and forth with the applicant. Some of them may have been for other applications we have with them, but at no time where we brought in or had decided to sit down and meet regarding the plan or discuss the shortcomings of the plan. And I'd also point out that looking at my comment letters here, I compared it to the previous version of Froebe Gardens. 25 of my 32 comments were not addressed from last time. As far as regards to our consultants, most of the comments from the traffic engineer were not addressed from the previous version to this new version, and half of the comments from the stormwater consultant, the engineering consultant, were not addressed. Point being is, over time, we have not seen a lot of progress, if any, in regards to addressing these comments. And I have multiple emails here where we're trying to either set up a meeting or discussing time extensions, but in no case do we actually ever discuss any of the comments that were made by staff.
So to answer, Mr. Chairman, in my opinion, they've acted reasonable. And as we pointed out, I think in Froebe 2, as council is aware, the applicant also has a duty of acting reasonable with its application. This is the third application for the same property, and the applicant understands the 90-day time period for which we all live under. And they made application after, 1 and 2, I think 3 was right after 2 before, it's almost simultaneous with 2.
And 3 is synonymous with gardens, correct?
Yes,
Correct.
three.
Three is gardens.
Yeah, three. So it sounds better to say gardens instead of a third phase of it, right?
All right, so it was March 25th is when we tabled the last request, right?
Right.
And they did not reach out for a meeting until April 9th, so that's 15 days
I think
later.
the meeting occurred on April 9th.
The meeting, that's right,
When
the
did they
meeting
reach
occurred
out
on
and try
April
to
9th.
schedule a meeting?
Yeah, they
But
started
you-
meeting out at the beginning of April. They started reaching out. We suggested sometimes, they suggested sometimes, but eventually it ended up on April 9th.
But the simple fact is, the plan that sits before you tonight, those drawings are the same drawings, unchanged, from January 22nd, 2024.
Is that true?
That is true. However, the meeting was only scheduled, the meeting only occurred on April 9th, which again is 13 days ago. And John can tell you how long it would take to revise the plans to meet that standard.
What I understood, Mark, when did you send the list of deficiencies to them?
March 1st.
March 1st. Okay.
Has anything, what's going on with like the whole well thing? Was that identified? Was it confirmed?
The well has been identified. I believe it's shown on some of the plans, but not all the plans. And one of the big issues we've had from a staff's perspective is our requirements show that there be a 200-foot easement around the wells, or that they intend to plug the wells, which there's actually issues regarding that in terms of do they have the right to plug the wells themselves? Well, I should say, not wells. And we've also requested that the site that has that well, whether it's plugged or not, actually not be a lot that's for sale, to basically be part of the open space.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's before you with the request for the extension is the argument that if you don't give it, council is not acting reasonable to the applicant. And on the flip side, what staff is suggesting is the township has acted reasonable all along, and what council has to weigh is the reasonableness of the request in light of what's before them. So we know, at least as of the beginning of March, the deficiency letter went out, which was not unique. As Mr. Holdren will tell you, that letter was very similar to multiple letters that had gone out in prior months for the same property under a different plan, with the same engineering firm, and no one has submitted a revised plan. So this isn't an occasion where a revised plan is here, they're on the clock, and they ask for an extension so the township can review it. There is nothing we are looking at right now that we require any more time because they haven't submitted anything. So that's the dilemma before council as to whether you give an extension or not.
When's the 90 days up?
A few days from now, I believe.
Yes, this is the last meeting before
It
that we can act
is May
upon it.
8th. So this would be the meeting where you would either have to grant an extension or take action on the plan.
So if you look at the clock.
Is there some set amount we have to extend it? Is it like another 90 days?
No.
They made a request, and I don't have it in front of me.
The request is for an extension to June 13th, which is an extension of 36 days beyond the 90-day limit, which would mean the review period would be 126 days.
Can I speak to some of the timing matters? John Schleicher with JMS Engineering. So, one of the things that's getting a little bit overlapped here is the different applications. When we applied with Froebe Gardens, and that was why we provided a unique name, just so it wouldn't be confused with either of the other applications. Township staff informed us correctly that this was a separate application and it was going to be treated completely independently of the previous applications. Obviously, everybody knows the history and has that information to refer back to. But one of the things in particular is a natural resource inventory that is basically a survey that's conducted and discussed at the staff level with regard to what are the valuable natural resources that are to be protected. There's a couple large specimen type trees that the township desires to be preserved. We're willing to do that, as willing to comply with all the conditions in the different review letters. The township staff, the township municipal engineer, and the traffic engineer. Several of the comments in the township engineer and traffic engineer review were specified to be items to be addressed with the final plan application. A lot of the stormwater management items, a lot of the the more technical things. Those are items that are typically addressed with the final plan application. So just with that timing, it wasn't a matter of whipping revisions around in a 2-week period to get something back in to pare down from 32 comments to whatever. It's let's step back. Let's go through the process with the natural resource inventory. Get the townships, get the staff, kind of get their blessing on it, or at least get their understanding of the different resources that are being preserved in the open space and so on, and move forward and come in front of this council with with clean review letters.
And do you think if we grant the extension, you will have everything done by that time?
Well, I believe we're down to 36 days. We originally requested an extension or offered an extension of 90 days.
It's always been, this is what was requested.
It was requested in the form of a date, but it was, if you back that date off 90 days, I think that's when the extension.
Part of my concern here, you have Froebe 1, then you bring in Froebe 2,
right?
Then you bring in Froebe 3.
Right. Froebe Gardens.
Excuse me. So, right.
Let's keep them straight.
Okay, right. You bring in the gardens, Froebe 3, right?
Right.
And it just seems like, you bring in a plan, Mark details what's wrong with it, you guys bring in another plan. And then you're here asking for an extension. How do we know that you're not going to come in 2 weeks from now with Froebe 4, and we're going to be in the same boat again? Well, which you certainly have the right to do. I'm not saying you don't.
Well, actually, if there was another plan that was submitted, it would have to be under the
new zoning ordinance,
yeah.
Right. Well, I think what Mr. Kozer's relayed, and when you compare that with what we've heard from staff, it does appear that this has been dragging on a long time, and it doesn't appear that it's through any fault of the township.
And mind you, there's still, 15 days on the 90-day clock. It's not.
Well, I mean, I understand that. I understand 15 days isn't probably enough to give them what they need to do. But with that said, I mean, I'm going to make a motion that we deny the request for an extension.
I'll second it. A motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a question. How much time do you need? Because, I mean, could you have it by the next council meeting? Which would be May 13th.
May 13th. We could certainly have updates to the plans, yeah.
No, let's see. It's not going to be completed then. Yeah.
No. I don't think it's not feasible with the required time, I think, on both parties' ends, on the township's review end, on the township, to provide that feedback, again, particularly with the natural resource inventory. Here's our survey, here's our outline. Township reviews it, gives us feedback. We work around those certain things which are going to require design revisions.
Right. Well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. 4-1, Mr. Lauer. Motion carries. All right. Next item. New business approval of Froebe Gardens residential development as shown on drawing prepared by JMS for Froebe Management LLC dated January 19, 2024.
So Froebe Management owns an 87-acre parcel located at 231 Froebe Road. They're proposing to develop this parcel and the regulations associated with the Conservation Residential Overlay District. The proposed residential development comprises 191 dwelling units. 23 of the total number units are proposed to be single-family attached dwellings situated in 5 buildings, each of which contains 4 to 5 attached units. The remaining of the site is to be divided into 168 lots for single-family detached residences. The plan reserves 26.2 acres as open space. The proposed lot sizes for the single-family detached residences in the preliminary plan range from 1/4 acre to 1/3 acre in size. The plan's proposed roadway network includes 5 roads and is constructed as a narrow cross-section as defined in the zoning ordinance. This is a 42-foot width right-of-way and a 24-foot cartway, including 10-foot driving lanes and 2-foot wedge curbs. The plan is proposed to be constructed of the Conservation Residential Overlay District, the express purpose of which is to preserve natural resources and to provide incentives for the creation of open spaces that add value to the community. A key to achieving this is the required conservation residential inventory and site design analysis that's provided for in the ordinance, which would identify numerous natural site features that dictate the layout of the development, which is done in a manner to complement and preserve significant natural features. And what's important about this is that that inventory is to be done first, and it's on that basis upon which the design is to be constructed. So that hasn't been done, and as a result of that, I think it creates the challenge of actually meeting what the purpose of the conservation residential zone is. At the April 11th, 2024 meeting, the Peters Township Planning Commission provided a recommendation to Peters Township Council to deny the Froebe Farm preliminary plan based upon concerns expressed by the township staff and consultants regarding the lack of compliance with the ordinance. Mr. Holdren, if you want, can go through some of the key concerns.
Yeah, as you can see in your staff report here, there were a number of items that the Planning Commission based their denial on. So what I'll do is just hit some of the highlights here rather than go through every niche comment here. There's a number of issues regarding the gas wells. As I noted earlier, there is a gas well that we know of in the development itself that was not shown on some of the plans. In addition to that, it needs to show easements around it, a 200-foot easement.
Where is the location?
If you, let's see if I can, right in here somewhere, if I'm not mistaken.
That's where we actually found the well, right?
That's the actual well, yes.
Okay, not where the DP said it was.
Correct.
Okay.
And in relation to that well, one of the items that we also asked is that lot that has the well on it itself, whether it's plugged or not, that it not be part of one of the homes or lots that would be for sale. So it'd be permanently undeveloped. And then we also had the question about whether or not they have the rights or the ability to even apply for it or to plug the well itself. There's a couple issues regarding the streets. We were looking for some design schematics on the revised or rebuilt, reconstructed, whatever you want to call it, Froebe Road, as well as the realigned intersection of Froebe Road and Meredith Drive. There's some traffic calming issues that TPD brought up, although some of these probably could be addressed in the final plan phase. There's also a disagreement on the design, the cross-section design for the streets itself. Staff felt that based on the way the design of this development sits, this should be a medium cross-section as opposed to a narrow cross-section. What that essentially does is it means that there's a greater need for additional right-of-way along each of the proposed roads. And then as noted previously, there's also the conservation, residential inventory, and site design analysis. That was the key thing that we felt needed to be done that would show the areas of the site that should be preserved and basically planned around in terms of development. And our consultant also noted a handful of stormwater issues, most notably comments 1 and 3 of their review letter, which says that they require a drainage easement with a minimum width of 200 feet and encompassing 100-year water surface elevation for natural water courses on site. Just paraphrasing that there. And then also comment number 3, they require a stormwater management report, which was not provided with this review. There's a number of other minor issues there, but those are the kind of the main highlights.
So because the preliminary plan for Froebe Farm fails to comply with Chapter 371 Stormwater Management and Chapter 385 Subdivision of Land Development and Chapter 440 zoning, the zoning code as enumerated in Mr. Holdren's letter to Steve Kohler on April 15th, it's the staff recommendation and my recommendation that council deny the Froebe Farm plan of lots.
So moved. Second. Motion is second.
Is this the same plan we were just talking about on the earlier motion? Not where I was granted?
This to be the time, yeah, this was the one where they asked for a time extension.
It's the same one, right?
Yes.
Well, wouldn't this be premature since they still have?
We don't have a council meeting between now and then, so you have to take action on it tonight.
Otherwise you
Okay, I was just asking.
And I think the question was asked to the engineer if he could be done by the next meeting, and that's what the answer was no.
All right.
Do we have an opportunity to speak to
Yes.
any of these comments? So, yeah, basically in a nutshell, at the April 9th meeting, or I'm sorry, April 11th meeting with staff, we did go through item by item the review letters, and the developer is agreeable to addressing all those items as requested in accordance with any code criteria, in accordance with the different reviews, including the medium cross-section that we're agreeable to, the medium road cross-section. And the discussion there was the additional right-of-way is only going to, I think maybe we have a disagreement as far as philosophically that the additional right-of-way is only going to make minimally smaller lots and perhaps bite into the open space a little bit. But it's achievable, and we're willing to do that. The other thing with the natural resource inventory, and this is where we've kind of gone in circles a bit with staff, is we had that pre-application process in the natural resource inventory with staff on the other applications. But we were told with this application, more recently, that process had to be started over, which is, again, a fairly lengthy process to go through the survey information, provide it to staff, get their feedback on the valuable natural resources that are to be preserved. And there were a couple specific items, again, the large oaks, that the developer is willing to work around and preserve those. Staff recommended that the lot containing the gas well, even once it's capped, that not be contained on a...
John, are you saying that there's been an inventory done by a landscape architect? Because I haven't seen that on any of these submittals.
There was, we went through that process with the original application, absolutely.
There has never been a plan submitted by a landscape architect in accordance with the ordinance. Not that I have any record of.
That was a...
I don't have any record.
Yeah, that was prior to Mr. Holdren's tenure, I understand.
Was that on Froebe 1 or 2, or was that on Froebe Gardens?
1.
Right. I don't believe that to be the case.
Yeah, and that's more of an informal process with the staff. That's at the staff level. That's actually...
No, that is not an informal process.
That's pre-application. That's prior to application.
It's not an informal process. It's described in great detail in the ordinance. It requires the employee of a landscape architect. And in fact, if it would have ever been done, it would have told us about those specimen trees from the property, and that's never came up.
Thank you, Paul.
In another example, the Froebe Road improvements, the request from staff now, and it's fine. It's different than what was the Froebe Road improvements that were going to be done with Froebe 1. Froebe, in addition to the Meredith Drive intersection, fixing that intersection, that's remained consistent. But the actual improvements to Froebe Road, that's been changed, and the developer is willing to do what the township is requesting, but that's not the same discussion that was had with the previous application. Previous applications was, mill and overlay. Now it's a little bit more involved. Again, the developer is willing to do it. There's an expense to that, but there's a little bit higher density with this application. And again, the developer is agreeable to all conditions and all review letters.
How many dwellings were in Froebe 1 and Froebe 2?
170.
170?
170, yes.
So the developers increased it by 21?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And principally, that consists of the additional townhouses.
Right. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
And if I could just
Yes, sir.
point out one thing, I think then, based upon what John said, I think the appropriate action for this board would be to approve the plan subject to the developer satisfying all the conditions and review letters. Since the time period has ended, due to this board not accepting the grant of the time extension, the only right thing to do now would be to approve the plan subject to meeting all those conditions.
In my 40 years here, Peters Township Council has never approved a plan with these kind of conditions, because what you're looking at are clear violations of the township's ordinances.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0, Mr. Lauer. All right. Next item, approval of Divelbliss, Beck, Fouts, land merger, minor subdivision as shown in drawings prepared by LK Land Service LLC for Terry and Cynthia Divelbliss and Brian and Amy Beck. This is dated April 11th.
This is fairly straightforward. There currently exist 4 parcels located in the Crossgates neighborhood north of the Peters Township High School property. So at that long line, that property line at the bottom, the adjacent property owner is actually the Peters Township School District. What's being proposed here is to take that large tract and divide it and then attach it to the existing lots. So if you look at that plan there, it shows you kind of a color coordination of what the final consolidation would look like. This was in front of the Planning Commission, and they made a recommendation to approve this subdivision, and it's my recommendation that council approves it for recording purposes.
So this is an unusual situation because we're actually losing the buildable lot, not creating a new one, right?
That's right.
Right. All right, I'll make a motion that we approve for recording purposes the Divelbliss, Beck, and Fouts land merger minor subdivision as shown on drawings prepared by LK Land Services LLC for Terry and Cynthia Divelbliss and Brian and Amy Beck dated April 11th, 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item, authorize use of Harshman CE Group to provide interim assistance to the Peters Township Planning
I'll make a
Department.
motion that we authorize the township manager to negotiate a contract with Harshman CE Group for plan reviews and building inspection services.
Second.
Motion.
Paul, are there any other firms out there that offer these services? Or?
Well, the reason we know of Harshman is they do this for a lot of municipalities in Washington County and also a number of municipalities in Allegheny County. I do not see this as a long-term solution. In fact, we, as of today, have sent out a conditional offer of employment to someone who's actually a certified building inspector.
Didn't we use them before?
No.
At some point, didn't we use somebody at some point?
We used CodeSys to provide this kind of service, and that's pretty far in the past, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, Mr. Lauer. Request for refund of traffic impact fee. Mr. Lauer.
As council's aware, we have a traffic impact fee that is levied against anyone who builds a new home in Peters Township. This situation's somewhat unique because the home is situated in an area of Peters Township that is only accessible by private road from Route 88. And so the homeowner's contention is that the traffic impact fee is intended to do intersection improvements in the township. His point is his home doesn't generate a problem for intersections in the township. My only concern would be if we waive this, we don't want to get involved in discussions as, in the future as to whether or not someone impacts traffic in the township or not.
Yeah, but how many houses do we have where the resident lives in Peters and they drive through another township to get out to the main road?
In fact, Mr. Long, quite frankly, didn't realize that his property actually, that he was building a house in Peters Township until he applied to Union Township to get a building permit. So if council wants to waive this, I don't have a problem with it. It's just that we, that traffic impact fee allows us to do improvements on lots of intersections. So.
Is that a one-time fee or?
It's a one-time fee that gets levied at the point in time when people apply for a building permit.
How much are we talking?
$1,700. Well, I mean, it just seems.
Sir, do you want to come up and?
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, let me explain on the board here.
Can you tell us?
This is our house. This is our steel fabricated shop.
It's hard of hearing.
Okay.
What?
Do you mind just telling us your name and?
Dave Long.
Thank you.
And the end of our driveway there runs right into a steel fabricating shop, which is in Union Township. And then the rest of it goes down to Route 88. There's absolutely zero traffic impact in Peters Township. Guaranteed. Absolutely for sure. 100%.
Okay.
Oh, where would this? Is this come down the woods? Comes down McClellan Road then?
We thought we were in Union Township.
No, it comes out on 88. McClellan's to the left.
Right.
Yeah, you can't get to McClellan.
No, I understand that. So I'm trying to figure out how this was how this land was subdivided. So
Peter did that 200 years ago.
There was a point where this actually juts out into Union Township, and there was at some point in time there was a change to where the township's border was, and it encompassed this part of McClellan that juts out into Union Township.
Well, I don't believe that we should be charging the Longs a traffic impact fee, so I'll make a motion that we grant their request for a refund.
Second, yeah.
Thank you.
Motion and a second.
I haven't voted yet.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0, Mr.
There you go.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay.
How do you get your money back?
It's in the mail.
All right, next item.
You have to pay a $2,000 fee to get it back.
No problem. I'm a very good businessman. I know that.
All right, next item, site plan approval, settlement agreement with St. Clair Hospital and Huntington Bank. Mr. Lauer.
So the agenda item actually contains two related items. And this is all being done in an effort to settle a dispute that's currently in Washington County Court. The first of which is to approve the site plan submitted by Huntington Bank. The site plan provides for 15 additional parking spaces in the interconnection of the hospital and the bank sites to facilitate access to a traffic signal. All parties at this point agree that the proposed configuration is actually superior to the configuration that was initially on the plan. And so from that perspective, the township staff is in support of this. The thing I need to point out to you is that, and it's sitting on your desk, this has been reviewed by Gateway Engineers with regard to stormwater management. They have a number of items that still need to be addressed. And so if you're approving this site plan, you're going to approve it conditioned upon Huntington Bank addressing the outstanding issues as outlined by Gateway Engineers. The other portion of this is to actually approve the settlement agreement itself. And the settlement agreement might be 60-some pages long, but quite frankly, it's only the one paragraph that is really of importance to the township, I believe. And that is that the recording of a permanent easement to facilitate the cross-access. The recording of a cross-access agreement allows the township to enforce the rights under the easement, and the signing of a maintenance agreement. The settlement requires that of St. Clair Hospital, and this is when we started this whole endeavor. That's what the township was after. The Huntington Bank has agreed to do the same, but as I understand it, where that might be executed, it will not be delivered until such time as this is actually constructed. I don't have too much of a concern with that because, quite frankly, Huntington Bank's been instrumental in resolving the issues that are out there. In fact, Mr. Hawk, who has kind of spearheaded this for Huntington Bank, is somebody I would like to recognize and thank for his assistance. So with that in mind, it's my recommendation that council approve the site plan subject to the conditions in Gateway's letter and authorize the appropriate township official to sign the settlement agreement. John's very familiar with this. He's spent a considerable amount of time on it. So
I think council should make 2 votes here.
Just when you review the settlement agreement, you're good with it?
Yes, multiple times, and counsel for the hospital is here as well. He may have reviewed it more than I have, but yes, we've made multiple changes, Mr. Lauer and I, and with St. Clair, mostly with St. Clair Hospital and some with Huntington.
So you said to have 2 votes.
I believe there should be 2, because one, we're approving a site plan, which is unusual for council to do, but we're doing it per the agreement. And then second, to approve the settlement agreement. I don't really care what order, but if one's going to be no, then they both probably break down.
The settlement agreement. I mean, the site plan probably should be first.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the site plan subject to the conditions stated by Mr. Lauer.
Stated by Gateway Engineers.
Recited by Mr. Lauer.
Okay.
Motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye. I'm going to abstain.
Opposed? 4-0, Mr. Lauer. 1 abstain.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve that we authorize the appropriate township official to execute the settlement agreement between St. Clair Hospital and Huntington Bank.
And the township.
And the township.
Second that as well.
Motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
4-0 with 1 abstain, Mr. Lauer.
Recuse, whatever it is. What's going on with the building permit for the hospital? We're on,
Well,
is that going to be held up until they put this?
No, I suspect they'll be here in the morning.
Well, I was going to say what the agreement calls for is the easement, the cross-access agreement, and the maintenance agreement to be signed, and then once that's done, the building permit can be issued. The township has already reviewed the plan, so it is sitting ready to issue.
That's all I wanted to know.
It looks like
not that I could vote on it anyway, but.
All right, very good. Payrolls and bills?
Yeah, I reviewed those prior to this evening's meeting and moved that we accept them.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Correspondence, Mr. Lauer. Letter from,
Yeah, you have an invitation from Mr. Wolf to attend a ribbon cutting. They have spent a great deal of money and effort to repair damage inside the Greer Tunnel, and they have asked if the township's interested in attending. It's going to be on. Don't have the date, but I'll get that date out to council.
It says 10 May celebration.
That's it. Yeah.
So is that the weekday or weekend?
That's a weekday, I believe.
Friday. At 9:30.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lauer. Anything like to report on the reports? Planning, engineering? Doesn't look like anything. There was some flooding, I think, in miscellaneous you're going to bring up. We can move into that. Fire Station 3.
Yeah, the thing with regard to Fire Station 3 that I wanted to bring to your attention, we didn't have flooding per se. We had a surcharge of the sanitary line, and it's surcharged twice. And the thing that's so disappointing to us about this is that when we applied for a tap with the Peters Creek Sanitary Authority, apparently this line has a history of surcharging, and we were never informed of that. So with council's permission, my intention is to send a letter to the Peters Creek Sanitary Authority expressing our concern with regard to that line, and also suggesting to them that perhaps they should be paying the deductible on the insurance. The amount of damage to the station is substantial, and we're working with the insurance company on a settlement right now, but there's no reason why that ever occurred. And like I said, unfortunately, we didn't know of that situation.
But isn't it standard to put a check valve in a commercial?
It's not standard.
Because I know Peters Township Sanitary Authority requires it for every house. They made me pull one, even though my house is at the end of the sewer line and the manhole's 30 feet down. I mean, shouldn't our contractor looked into this, or our engineers, or? I mean, it just seems to me when you're building a building like that, putting a check valve in should just be like,
Well, I can tell you that's what's occurring right now, and there'll be a flapper valve, and there'll be also a ball valve, so that we have absolute control over it. So.
Okay. Next item, collective at Peters Lake.
Yes, Mr. Kozer asked me to put this on to be able to report to council what's happening. As council's aware, when we purchased Peters Lake, we purchased not only land in Peters Township, we purchased land in North Germain. In fact, the separation between the two actually runs through the middle of the lake. So what's off of North Spring Valley Road and the dirt road that goes to the causeway is actually in North Germain. What's being proposed is a residential development. The part towards the top of the screen borders on the Peters Township property. This type of development in North Germain is a conditional use. They've had a conditional use hearing on it. Having said that, when you have a conditional use, municipalities have a right to establish reasonable conditions, but the actual underlying use is a use by right. This particular development comports to all the regulations in North Germain, with the exception of the length of that cul-de-sac. Having had a discussion with the manager in North Germain, they would have to get a variance, and his belief is that the township would oppose the variance and require that the road loop back onto North Spring Valley Road. Again, I understand that there's a lot of people in the community who are concerned about this, but quite honestly, the township, Peters Township, has little influence over what happens in North Germain with regard to this development.
I have a question for you, Paul. Is there any part of that plan that's going to discharge water from that plan over our land, because we own the shoreline?
Yeah,
into the lake? And can't we just say that they can't do that?
Yeah, but see, that's not going to happen, Mr. Curry. And again, this is only a conceptual plan, and there'll have to be an engineered plan. But right now, they're showing a stormwater pond at the top of the screen. And if you go down onto that property, what you notice on the other side of North Spring Valley Road, there is a drainage area. In fact, there is currently a catch basin on North Spring Valley Road that dumps into that ravine and dumps into the lake. So I don't believe you're going to have, and again, we haven't seen a plan yet, but I don't think you're going to have a discharge onto the township's property directly off of this. But we won't know that until we see an engineered plan.
Because I don't think that's right that water's going in there. I mean, you know that.
Well, the only thing that I would point out to you, because we have heard this argument about concerns about the water quality and that. One thing I will tell you, having talked to the manager in North Germain has a a zoning requirement that prohibits more than 50%, the rate of discharge to be greater than 50% of the existing, which normally would result in larger stormwater ponds. The other thing is it's going to be reviewed by the Washington County Conservation District. The DEP has a preference for percolation as much as discharge out of ponds, so as to address the question of water quality. But what you're looking at here is a rough outline of what the watershed is that feeds that lake. And as you can see, there are a number of streets in Peters Township where all of that water that's coming off those streets, Vaughn Valley, Robin Hood, Center Church, drain directly into that lake. The other thing is, you know, you have active farms and whatever chemicals and fertilizers are used on those farms that drain into that lake. So I understand the concern, but I'm not sure that it is such that it's going to exacerbate what already drains into that lake. So,
John,
Excuse me, what active farms?
if you look at that, this is an aerial, and it shows you the farms that are in that area.
The ones with the vehicle. Are they active? Farms? I don't know. Isn't Simmons Farm off of Thomas?
Yeah.
Wait, it's in that area.
Yeah, that land that Simmons
Imagine
leases.
how that feeds that lake.
Yeah, but that's not impervious.
Oh.
Those farms aren't impervious material. I mean, there's a lot of percolating, you know, that water's going into the ground. Whereas as opposed to.
But there's.
Huh?
It ends up moving down the watershed. You just stay there.
Yeah, but then it gets go through all that clay. It's
It would be those fields on the lot.
Can we have someone speak? Are we allowed to talk?
Yes.
But all those blue lines indicate streams or creeks that drain into the lake.
Just come up to the microphone, please, if you want to make a comment.
John, I had a few residents email us with regard to section 502.1
of the municipality's planning code that allows the township to request mediation from the county planning commission if a development in a neighboring municipality would have a negative impact upon the residents of their community. I know you've probably had experience with 502.1 and all the oil and gas litigation you've done. So do you think there's any way 502.1 applies here?
I mean, it obviously exists, but the problem is, and I think the manager pointed it out, what council asked me to look at is whether we would qualify as aggrieved. And I think Mr. Arcuri probably got the closest to the extent that they were utilizing or interfering with our property rights. We may classify as aggrieved, although I don't know that they can without an easement from us. Yeah, so ultimately, if they're going to go over our property, we control our own fate. Otherwise, unless and until we see that there's going to be some dramatic effect, even if we were to join and challenge the conditional use from a municipal standpoint as an aggrieved party, I don't believe we qualify to do that. I've done it before, but you know, that was something that was, you know, colorable. And I said to Mr. Kozer today, I said, I'm not against looking at facts that are presented to change my opinion, to find aggrieved status. I just don't think we have it at the moment.
Thanks, John.
Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Debbie Healy-Langley from Lisa Court. And I wrote down some notes, if I could share my notes with you, my information. Okay. I'm here tonight to urge you to please get involved with preventing the negative impacts to Peters Lake from the proposed collective at Peters Lake. Peters Lake is a treasured resource that Peters residents enjoy for the stellar natural resources and recreational use, and these resources are extremely dependent on high-quality lake water. The Pennsylvania DEP, in its 2024 integrated report, classifies Peters Lake as high quality. It's unimpaired by pollutants, and these are tests that DEP does. They do the testing, and they do the classification every 2 years. They update it. They classify Peters Lake as high quality and unimpaired by pollutants, which is quite rare in suburban and urban areas. This lake needs to be protected from pollutants to maintain its high integrity water quality. The proposed development will have harmful impacts on this high quality water quality classification of the lake by increasing pollutants in the runoff by sedimentation, siltation, nitrogen, and phosphorus. I can expound on that, right? The lawn chemicals, these 41 homes, that's nitrogen and phosphorus, that's increasing the load of pollutants that are going to flow to the lake. Then with the increase in imperviousness, more rooftops, sidewalks, pavement, it's going to increase the flow and velocity of the stormwater runoff. That increases erosion and increases sediment and siltation. These impacts will affect the aquatic and other resources that depend on excellent quality lake water, fish, birds, amphibians, etc. Another source from the state is the Pennsylvania Natural Heritage Program. They've identified Peters Lake as a habitat for the rare white trout lily. The Peters Natural Heritage Program calls Peters Lake a site of state significance. So I urge you to please act as good stewards of Peters Lake and please get involved in whatever means you can to prevent harm to the lake. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Come on.
Hi, I'm Allison Dadiaco, 102 Highland Drive, and I wanted to first thank you for adding this to your agenda. We really appreciate it because we know it's North Strabane that's doing the development. And I wanted to, Debbie talked about a lot of the issues with the water quality, which I know you've all heard about as well. I also just wanted to point out that there are a couple residents here from North Spring Valley who we're working with on this issue. They all have springs in their yard. They have underground, they're all on well water. I don't know if you know that or not. They're all on well water, or one of them uses spring water solely as his water source. So they have active springs and water that's coming down. So even though you say that the right-hand parcel does indeed border our land, the left-hand parcel is going to be dug up, and it has on it numerous springs, which if you look at the docket from North Strabane, they do indicate how many things. There may be 5 springs over there, I think, and they feed the lake, particularly one that's further to the left towards the dam. I think that's John Lubick's property that you've told me runs all the time.
Footbridges.
Yeah, the little bridges that you go across when you're on the trail. These are the nice people whose yards are right behind you. But those springs, they're going to be dug up. And I've also spoken with one of the other residents of North Spring Valley who tells me that when there's construction on North Spring Valley, his water availability decreases. So what's that going to do to the lake? So to me, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an ecologist, but logically, it's not just the runoff, it's not just the pollution, the sediment, it's also what are we doing to our natural resource of water that's coming from those underground aquifers and feeding the lake. So that really concerns me. And so we all implore you, we're all going to be going to the North Strabane meeting, which is on Wednesday. I don't know if anyone, I appreciate you speaking with the township manager in North Strabane, I really do. But I implore you to continue to be involved in this in any way that you can. So thank you. I'll write my name down.
Thank you.
I mean, one thing council might do, I'm not sure, is it the conditional use meeting? Paul, they already threw that.
But they've already had a conditional use hearing. I think what they're doing is a decision on the conditional use.
Maybe after that, when it reaches land development, council may want to send a letter, to North Strabane reflective of the concerns of the township and the citizens here. Because again, this will ultimately, from a lake standpoint, get reviewed by DEP. And they're obviously not going to, at least purportedly under their governance documents, not supposed to let anything harm the lake. We don't oversee that part of the world, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't put, your 2 cents before North Strabane Council and the citizens' concern that they look at that. That does carry some weight.
Yeah, we do have over 1,100 signatures on the petition, I might add.
No, and I think that's great, and I think obviously the weight of council, and they know the neighboring community. Because I know that they reached out to me, they're concerned, they want to do something, and if there was something we could have done, we probably would have challenged the conditional use and went up that route, but we don't fall into the aggrieved category under the law with not being an adjacent landowner that has a dwelling or something. But And again, I don't think council looks like they're real amenable to allowing any easement over their land, so we'll see how that goes.
I know I'm not amenable to that.
Yeah.
I got the feel. And no one's approached council that I'm aware of either. At least
I think I recall from when you handled that oil and gas litigation and that reading that decision, and that was a long time ago, but I thought the Supreme Court did recognize, the Constitution protects environmental type
100%,
and
yes.
habitat and things like that. So I mean, I don't know if we can stop it or do what we need to do, but I'm very concerned about all those issues that we're talking about.
And I think that could be part of council's letter reminding North Strabane of their obligations to make sure that that water stays clean.
Well, and then I think we should let the DEP know and the Washington County.
And I've already had this discussion with, again, through the manager's office there, that, eventually this has...
Who runs that office, do you know? Who is that?
Excuse me?
Who is it?
Andy Waltz.
Okay.
When this moves forward, there's actually an engineered plan. We're going to put the Washington County Conservation District on notice of a concern with regard to water quality. So,
can I ask a question? Is there anything? I mean, we're going on Wednesday to the North Strabane meeting. There's nothing we can take with us from council to that meeting, is there?
I mean, I don't think council's in a position to say that they should vote to deny the conditional use. I think they're more inclined to say, well, if this plan is going forward, to make sure that all protections are afforded to lakes and surrounding people.
Yeah, correct. This is just, in North Strabane, this is just the beginning of the process.
We know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're grateful for you all, for Peter's owning that, buying that lake and keeping it what it is for your community and all communities. It's amazing. We just want to see it move in the same direction.
And you can recap what you heard from council tonight at the meeting. There's nothing stopping you from telling you the will of council and their concerns.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It was a letter that you sent to North Strabane, but how could we incorporate some of the detailed facts that were shared with you tonight into that?
I was thinking that I was talking about the letter. Maybe you can share that with the manager, and he's going to probably prepare it for council's review, and that information may be helpful.
So we would contact the manager to...
Yes.
Yep. Mr. Lauer.
Oh,
here every day.
Okay.
So I would contact you about a letter that you're putting together.
It'll be probably for council's.
Well, it would be the official position of council, and that would have to be approved by council as opposed to us. I mean, I think the appropriate time to do that isn't while they're doing this. It's once they have a plan in place that we can actually see what it is they're doing.
So wait.
I think
you can make the representations, but I think the letter from council will be once we look at engineer drawings.
Okay. But we would share these facts with you to incorporate into that. Right. Okay.
I just find it amusing that the DEP said it's a high quality lake with a, but the dam is efficient.
What's the latest on the dam?
It hasn't changed. About 10 years ago, we were told.
Are we going to have to redo the study? I mean, now they build this development. Now water flows are going to change.
No, that has no impact. The concern that the DEP has with the dam has to do with the spillway capacity. This doesn't have anything to do with that spillway capacity.
Okay. All right. Thank you for all the comments.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Mr. Lauer, always be smiling update.
Yes, the only, as you are aware, Always Be Smiling was in asking for help with a walkway. They have another ask for you. There is no public water that services this building. Their intention was to have water trucked in, and what they've now been told by DEP is that if you're going to do that, that water needs to be stored above ground in a conditioned building. So that makes it unfeasible to actually do water in that way. So they went out and hired a driller to come in to drill for a well on their property, and they find out that on their site there is not a suitable location to put a well. So what they would like to do, or what Mr. Robinson would like to do, is to go on to his property up the hill from the site and then bring water down to the site. But to be able to do that, they have to cross the trail. And, so they would need permission from us to be able to get across the trail. And my point to them was that I personally don't see a problem with that, but to do that, they would have to bore under the trail as opposed to deep cut it. And so the question is, would council consider that? We got to go back to the Montour Trails Council as well to find out whether they would permit it.
But
So,
in that section, that's not paved though, there, is it?
I'm not quite sure how you get a drilling rig up that hill, so I don't know that.
Well, no, I'm saying about regarding crossing the
Yeah,
trail.
trail's not paved there.
It's not paved there, but you have a deep bed with crushed stone on it. I don't think you want to disrupt the trail for whatever length of time, and to cross that by boring or some pneumatic method wouldn't take hardly anything at all.
Well, the buildings that Mr. Robinson has down there now, don't they have water?
No water.
No water.
They don't?
No. He trucks water in there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't have an issue with it as long as they bore on it, because I agree with you, Paul, you don't want them disturbing the surface because it's going to settle and then you're going to have somebody.
We'd have to put some limiting language in there, though, that
It would be
that
another-
water can only be used.
And I would think the Montour Trail's going to probably police that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There'd be another agreement for Abigail and John's office.
Well, that's okay.
All right.
All right. As next week, we have a joint workshop for Peters Township School Board.
And my only question, is there anything you want on that agenda specifically?
No, we need to address the entrance signs.
Yes.
To Lake Park and the high school.
Okay.
That and again at the meeting or in the public hearing today, if we can have them address these new developments going up in the capacity of schools.
That we're going to have a presentation.
And a lot of people are still interested in a timeline on, like, curiosity of a stadium.
Yes.
And also like outdoor fields. And I was wondering if you had an update possibly on the fields at PW 1 and 2. I was told that now that 1 is not being turfed.
No, well.
That's correct.
It's probably correct because there's not going to be enough money, but the fields have been lit, the new lighting's
I saw
in
them,
place.
very nice.
And we are going to be out to bid when?
2 Fridays.
And we'll have a bid opening, but quite honestly, the amount of money that's available will not cover turfing that field.
So why is, sorry, Tom,
Go ahead.
why is 2 getting it over 1?
Because the 1, we can afford that project
Okay.
because it's a smaller field, and 2, it is the field that's used in most cases by local residents.
Okay.
And so,
And then so then another question to the school board would be, are they ever going to plan on, joining forces on paying for that field that their students
and I would be
use?
careful with that discussion because there are a lot of facilities that the township uses that we do not contribute to.
Elm Park.
Yeah. So that's
But
the
they also
flip
have
side
a lot
of
of,
that.
I know, but they also have a lot of stuff that they don't take care of. And,
I understand too.
it's a shame.
One other issue we need to discuss with them is, I see some of these transfers into D-transfers, some of the commercial properties on Route 19 that are getting sold for 6 times what they're assessed at. Why is the school district so adamant to not appeal these assessments? They raise the millage every year. I mean, you look just like number 1 Cochran, that building sold for almost $12 million.
Yeah, but here's, and again,
Right, not even.
throughout Washington County, school districts are appealing assessed values. But what you need to keep in mind is you cannot just appeal the commercial assessments.
Oh, yeah, you can, as long as you follow, the Supreme Court said a couple years ago, as long as you follow a set formula and you're not cherry picking, you can appeal just commercial or you can appeal just residential.
Well, then, we're going to have to go back and look at that question again because what we've been advised is the reverse. There has to be a uniform approach, whether it's commercial or residential.
I handled some tax assessment appeals on residential property, and they have a formula. If the house sells and it's not within it's not exceed a certain percentage of its assessed value, they don't appeal it, they don't challenge it. But if it does, they challenge everyone.
And again, that's
That
my
gets expensive.
understanding, is that you need to apply that rule to all assessment appeals. And if I'm wrong about that, we need to find that out.
Yeah. Because there's not a lot involved. I mean, the deed shows how much they paid for it. Then it shifts the burden to them to come in and say, well, yeah, we paid $10 million for the property, but it's not worth it. And that's a tough road to hoe, I would think. You know,
So,
unless there's gold on it.
yeah, going back to the baseball fields, did the Peters Township Baseball Association, are they paying any money into this?
I think you
I don't believe
Peters Township Baseball
the
Association.
association doesn't have money.
I mean, because when we
One of
put in
the-
soccer fields, the soccer association
Yeah.
pays for it.
One of the
With
things
township.
that they have asked, and it's included in the bid document, that there's some batting cage system that is outside the project scope. They've asked us to bid that. Their intention is to pay for that themselves.
Okay.
And
Sounds
also,
great.
yeah.
Anything else for next agenda? All right. We're adjourned.